and for you to be there for me like you always are. Ask her and she will tell you. I stole her tongue, replaced it with guilt, saddled it with blame, rode off on it like a horse. Choose your words like chess pieces, burn your hopes like cedar, pull that smoke over you like a blanket, put a cigarette out on you 'cause I can. Pray that someone hears you. Clutch it, pretend it's still there, even after it's gone. This path of least resistance, the intersection of law and people, to doctors without clues, for say-nothing neighbors, do-nothing attorneys, and quiet parents with no memories. Thank you. You make all of this possible. We couldn't fail these women without your help. For the woman and her baby left for dead by the police at her home, while they gave a ride to her attacker back to his house. To the girlfriend punched in her pregnant stomach, to the wife who took the beatings so her kids wouldn't have to. To the daughter who found a man as abusive as her dad, to the co-ed go to the 9 again, to the restraining order as strong as the paper it's made from, and to the shelter with not enough beds. I give 1,000 sweats for rape victims, 1,000 doctorings for husbands, 1,000 prayer ties for courage, 1,000 meetings for silence, 1,000 songs for patience, and 1,000 fires for enough light to fill a room, to reflect off a mirror the size of the moon, just so we can see ourselves for what we are. Complicit. So I dare you to protect them, Mr. President. I dare you to make laws for them, Senator and Representatives. I dare you to try to stop me, tribal leaders. I dare you to go look for me, police officer. For every 1,000 Native women in your district, 330 of them will be sexually assaulted. 88% of the perpetrators will be non-Native, and every piece of every legislation needs a champion, but not all champions are leaders, and not all leaders are men, just like not all kisses are wanted, and not all laws are consensual. They trespass her body like they trespass this land, in the corner of a HUD home, in the backseat of a car, in a courtroom, in every hall of every government. We fail them. And the terrorist threat is in the same house, in the same car, goes to the same school, and works at the same job, and the threat 10 times more likely to murder her than anyone else. This war is at home. Living room battlegrounds, bathroom infirmaries, backseat trenches, fists like tanks, sex like a war trophy. Under treaties of silence, she whispered to me, please, please stop. I am your wife. I am your sister. I am your mother. I am your daughter. You are supposed to protect me. You are supposed to be a warrior. Protect me from you, from him, from all of them. Tell me you have daughters. Tell me you don't want this for them. Tell me you won't joke about this with your friends. Tell me you won't forget we talked. Tell me you will do something. Do something.
OCO. Today, May 5th, is the Remembrance Day for the murdered and missing Indigenous people. I will be reading some articles that can be very difficult to listen to because the situations are not pleasant. Indigenous people go missing or turn up murdered at 10 times the national average rate. And very often, they're not even investigated, let alone looked for. Excuse me. One that hits close to home is someone who was a Washington resident. This is the one some trolls try to say, oh, she knew where that dead woman was. I bet she was involved. So the first person we're going to discuss is Misty Upham. If I can find the story wherever it went. I'm going to read this out loud. Again, trigger warning. Hopefully I've got a mod who can keep an eye out. This is from The Guardian. Misty Upham, the tragic death and unscripted life of Hollywood's rising star. Now, before I get started, Misty Upham started through a program at Daybreak Star in Seattle, which is a Native cultural center. I think one of the leaders of the group is an acquaintance of mine by the name of Fern Renville, who is Dakota. Or is she in Dakota? I think she's in Dakota. But she has a group where she teaches drama to Indigenous youth. Okay. The Native American actor played alongside Hollywood's best. Last October, her body was found in a ravine after she went missing for 11 days, and her family still searches for answers and justice. By Kristen Milares Young in Seattle. When Misty Upham was 12, she announced herself to a Seattle classroom of aspiring performers. My name is Misty Upham, and someday you will know that name as the best living Native American actress. Years later, and against all odds, her prophecy became true. She acted alongside some of Hollywood's best: Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Benicio del Toro. Last October, Missy was found dead, skull and ribs broken, flies buzz in a wooded ravine in Auburn, Washington. Her body lay just above the turbulence of the White River. She was 32. This story is about her demise, how she went missing for 11 days, how she was found by folks enlisted by her family and not by the police, how she was mocked when she most needed help, how she survived rapes, how she inspired kids, and how, as an Indigenous woman, she was not alone in facing injustice. Born on July 6, 1982, Misty grew up in Montana and Washington, moving on and off the Blackfeet Reservation according to her family's financial needs. Her father was a music teacher, her mother a homemaker, and occasional entrepreneur. They raised their 3 children as evangelical Christians. Both of her parents were sent to boarding schools under a federal policy that eroded Indigenous cultural and linguistic ties across the country. Still, Charles Upham wanted better for his children than reservation life. I was determined to take my kids away from the reservation where so many young people fail out to a place where they could get an education, have a grounding experience. I told the kids that they were going to learn that there is a stigma associated with being an American Indian, that people were racist, and that we lived under the stigma of alcoholism and being uneducated. Misty found out the hard way in the city of Billings, where her family moved so her father could pursue his college degree in music education. She had a friend who used to play with her and have her over at her house until her mom found out that Misty was Native, Charles recalls. Then her friend said she couldn't be friends anymore because her mom didn't want her to get bugs. Misty was crying to me asking, "What bugs?" And I said, "She probably thinks we have lice. Let me tell you, my kids were very clean and well dressed. Their relative comfort works against them once housing circumstances oblige them to return to the Blackfeet Reservation, where jobs are hard to come by. We had nice things. Other kids were poor. They invited Misty to watch some horses being broken. 20 kids out there. They beat her up." Misty would later talk openly about being gang raped on the reservation when she was 13. She wrote about the physical and emotional legacy on her blog, The Struggles and Triumphs of a Blackfeet Native with a Dream, which was made private after her death. In it, she wrote, "First, there is the physical pain and never being able to forget it. The fear of having someone hold you down, the cheering and the laughter. All those noises won't leave my mind. I keep hearing it like a ghostly voice. But the physical is nothing compared to the mental. This was not her first rape either. Heather Ray Cherokee, a film producer who was Misty's friend, said she talked about having been abused at a young age, someone close to the family, that started when she was very young and continued. Because of these traumas, Ray said, Misty was extraordinarily sensitive and contended with high levels of anxiety throughout her life. Misty was not alone in her suffering. More than 1 in 3 Native women are sexually assaulted in their lifetime, a rate 2.5 times higher than other U.S. women. Let me just give an aside here that if you talk to Native women privately in person, it's closer to 10 times higher. It's hard to find the Native woman who hasn't been abused. On the red carpet, on set, alone in her hotel rooms, Misty was afflicted by panic attacks that began when she was a teen. She fought to control them with prescribed medications and alcohol, both of which she abused. When those didn't work, she cut herself, leaving dozens of small scars on her forearms. While her parents tried, they were not able to protect her from being damaged by her environment. During her time on the reservation, Misty became infected with the H. pylori bacterium, common to places without clean water and proper sewage control, and causing stomach ulcers. She threw up repeatedly until stomach acids ate her teeth and forced her to use dentures. It was fresh from that experience that Misty summoned the courage to declare her hopes to the world. She would become an actress, not just any actress, the best. Fern Renville, there's Fern, Sisseton Wahpeton, is the managing director of Red Eagle Soaring, the Native theater group that gave Misty her start. Renville said Misty exemplified Indian persistence. She was tough as nails. She never expressed self-pity. She would express pain or angst, but not self-pity. Despite being told by her first drama teacher to find another line of work, she kept at it for 5 years, writing, directing, acting, finding her way in performance, her father said. Eventually, Misty was filmed auditioning in Seattle. At the age of 20, she appeared in her first feature, Skins. The roles kept coming: Edge of America, Expiration Date, Frozen River, Big Love, Django Unchained. Misty only suffered from dry spells when she refused to take res roles, portraying Native Americans as stereotypical drunks. Charles left his job so he and his wife could stay with their daughter, who could not handle being alone. Their repeated moves, accumulated debt, and occasional homelessness left a heavy load on Misty's young shoulders. She cleaned houses between casting calls and film festivals, working tirelessly to keep herself and her family afloat. The list of her roles grew steadily. Jimmy P., August Osage County, and Cake, released after her death, and with it, her status as the preeminent Native actor. Despite her success, mental illness and substance abuse continued to plague her. Acting has saved me from darkness many times, Misty said in June of 2014 of her motivation to create a children's theater troupe. And most Native children have dreams just like every other child, but they may never touch those dreams because of poverty and isolation. I'm going to change that. Melissa Leo, who co-starred with Misty in Frozen River, was one of a constellation of supporters who let Misty couch surf as a respite from the needs and fights of her family. Misty had an extraordinarily complicated family life in reality, she said. People saw her talent and overlooked the rest and hoped and prayed and helped her as we could. This pattern continued after Misty left California for Washington to stay with her father as he recovered from a stroke. Misty and her parents moved into her sister's apartment across the street from the Muckleshoot Casino and downhill from the shabby forest where she would meet her death. The medical examiner in King County ruled that Misty died due to blunt force trauma to the head and torso, injuries consistent with her plummet off a steep embankment. Using the cycles of fly larvae around and in the body, the examiner dated her time of death to the night of her first day of disappearance. However, the medical examiner ruled that the manner of her death, whether by foul play, suicide, or accident, could not be determined. According to the toxicology report, Misty's blood alcohol level was 0.33 at the time of her death, a level of intoxication so extreme that its symptoms are complete unconsciousness, incontinence, low body temperatures, and depressed or absent reflexes. Friends and family say she was addicted to benzodiazepines to quell her anxiety. In her ongoing effort to bring her emotional and chemical balance under control, Misty had been prescribed Prozac, Ambien, Ativan, Xanax, venlafaxine, and Zoloft, her father said. Like many low-income people living with mental illness, Misty relied on emergency room care after she moved back to Washington, in part because she had difficulty reestablishing psychiatric care to continue her prescriptions for depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and PTSD. Reliant on the Indian Health Service, oh man, and perhaps unaware that she could supplement her health care with other resources under the Affordable Care Act, Misty was not able to secure a psychiatric appointment to continue her most critical prescriptions until late November, more than a month after she died, and more than 5 months after she moved back to Washington, according to her father. While 70% of American Indians live in urban areas, only 1% of the Indian Health Service budget addresses urban programs, according to the Urban Indian Health Institute. This massive funding discrepancy shortchanges many people in serious need. Still, Misty kept her sense of humor. During an ER visit to treat a panic attack, a nurse asked her about working with Meryl Streep. I said, sure, Misty wrote on Facebook, but not while you're holding my pee. Misty's newest movie, August Osage County, was released to wide acclaim in the beginning of 2014. Amid a flurry of film promotions, Misty learned she was pregnant, announcing on 28th of May that she would name her child Leaf, whether it was a boy or a girl. The identity of the father remains unclear. She was going to keep the baby, a baby boy, her father said. She started keeping a journal for him, telling him who she was, how much she loved him, what she ate that day, anything and everything. Leaf gave her the reason she had been looking for to stay sober. She quit drinking instantly, Renville said. She was very firm. But less than a month after announcing her pregnancy, Misty wrote on Facebook, I am losing my pregnancy as we speak. I don't know if it is stress or what, but it breaks my heart when people mention little Leaf. I trust God, and there is a reason. Leaf will return to me someday, and it will be under better circumstances. Thank you for all the prayers. Now I can focus on helping my parents to keep me busy. Family and friends said that the emotional state frayed as summer seemed to fall. Still, she used her online presence to promote awareness of issues that many others try to hide. On the 18th of August, she posted, I'm doing something that may be career suicide, but I thought, how will people understand what we're going through? The mentally ill. I will be one of the many who have decided to be honest with my feelings, not to get sympathy or attention, but to let people know there is such a thing as mental illness, and it is more common than you think. It doesn't discriminate nor favor. It is the edge of loneliness, but that with help there is a sunny side. There is always a sunny side. Hope and health remained hard to reach for Misty. On the 15th of August 2014, 7 weeks before Misty's death, Charles called the police. Misty was throwing things and swinging scissors around the family's small apartment. Just after his call, an employee of the Muckleshoot Market and Deli across the street phoned the police. A yelling, rambling, and shoeless woman was prowling vehicles behind the business, according to reports emailed by responding officers who wrote that Misty was hiding in the bushes and would not be coaxed out, lunging at an officer who ducked into the foliage to talk to her. I remember each of us grabbing one of Misty's wrists, then walking out with her, at which point she began kicking, rolling on the ground, and flailing her arms violently while yelling and screaming, an officer wrote. They handcuffed her and put her in the back of a patrol car, where he described her flashing on the floor, spitting out her dentures, screaming, I am going to get all your badges, and shouting that she would have her lawyers make all the officers lose our jobs for mistreating a movie star. In this account, Misty made a spectacle of herself. Watching from across the street, her father saw a different scene. They were tapping the glass and making faces at her. She was crying and telling them to stop, and they couldn't treat her like this. And an officer said, well, if you're a movie star, why didn't you call up George Clooney? Her mom was telling me to go over there, and I said, no, it's better that they don't know we're watching. I'll just get arrested. But I had to take her purse to them. It had her medication. So I go over there, and he said to me, is she delusional? She thinks she's a movie star. And I said, she is. Misty was involuntarily committed that night, her third time. An emailed police summary of Misty's case indicates she was afraid of being detained on involuntary hold again. Her father said a hospital worker told her she could be committed for a year. They love to scare you with shit like that. In a Facebook post, Charles Upham described the rest of the day. After Misty arrived at the ER, we went to see her, and she has a swollen jaw, black eye, and scratches and bruises on her shoulder. I asked the ER staff what happened, and they said Misty was brought in like that. Misty said she couldn't remember what happened, but that's why she feared the police. Later on, the family would accuse the Auburn Police Department of brutality and mockery. They denied it, Charles said. We witnessed it. The Auburn police countered with a press release that claimed that they had responded to each of the family's calls professionally and with compassion. Oh, yeah, I'm sure they did. The responding officers wrote reports about that August night for administrative review, and one contained an admission that none of the other officers reported to have seen or heard. Based on the totality of these circumstances, it appeared to me Upham's severe level of intoxication had caused her to fabricate her profession as a Hollywood actress with a Hollywood agent. I sarcastically questioned Upham about her profession and asked if she had ever met Hollywood actor Robin Williams. At one point, I interrupted her threats by making an abrupt, spontaneous babble noise in an attempt to distract her from her rants and get her to quit yelling. Now, that sounds professional. It is unclear whether Misty sustained the scratches and bruises claimed by her family due to some prior event, police brutality, or as a byproduct of being dragged out of the bushes and handcuffed against her will while awaiting medical transport for psychiatric evaluation. But to frame this officer's sarcastic mockery and gibberish as a professional and compassionate is, on its face, untrue. When the Guardian questioned the Auburn Police Department about it, Commander Mike Herman said, "Naturally, it is embarrassing for the department because we strive for professionalism." Calling the officer's actions unprofessional, Herman said, "We coached him, counseled him, and noted it in his file. That behavior was not consistent with our core values." However, Herman denied that the Auburn police played a role in the injuries claimed by her family. There was a great likelihood that she was injured because she was intoxicated with alcohol and prescription drugs. When asked how he knew that the officers had not injured Misty, Herman said, "Whenever an officer uses force on any subject, they are required to do a force report, and there were no force reports." Oh, yeah, I believe that horse shit. Less than 1 week after the officers took his daughter into custody in the deli parking lot for psychiatric evaluation, Charles called 911. According to the police, on the 21st of August, 2014, Misty tried to hang herself and throw herself off the second-floor window, both times restrained by her family. Misty was involuntarily committed again. 2 days later, and according to police records, Misty was cooperative, friendly, and calmed. She told a counselor brought to the ER that she wanted anxiety meds, but no plan, intent, or means to kill herself. The report states that Misty was given a safety plan, but makes no mention of medication. 6 weeks later, on the 5th of October, she disappeared. On that day, her father said Misty was inconsolable. Once again, he dialed 911. Charles said Misty ran off. He got his coat and ran right after her. At the bottom of the stairs, he heard somebody say, "Hey." The police officers walked up, he said. They insisted on searching the apartment. He told them she was not there, adding they needed to go find her now. But they made him go inside, and they searched the whole apartment, looking in closets and everything, which took about 10 minutes. She was gone. Charles said he told the officers, "She could be hurt. I need you to help me find her." They said, "We can't. You have to wait 24 hours for her to be missing." Herman contradicted the family's account. "That is not our policy at all. If someone wants to report somebody missing, we do so right away." Police categorized that call as involving a person who was suicidal, not missing, Herman said. Officers left after checking areas in and around the family's apartment. The medical examiner estimated she died about 6 hours later. Still, while Auburn police records show that the detective assigned to investigate Misty's disappearance on the 7th of October, 2 days after she went missing, there would be no official police search party, despite the family's repeated and desperate requests. They said, "We don't have evidence she's missing. She's probably off partying somewhere with her friends," her father said. Once her father called again to report Misty missing on the 6th of October, Auburn police refused to evaluate her status to endangered, which would issue a higher alert. On the 10th of October, when reporters asked the police department for a press release, Commander Steve Stalker wrote that he had no plans to produce one. 6 days into the anguish of his daughter's disappearance, Charles asked his cousin, Robert Upham, to marshal a search party. 2 days later, on the 13th of October, Detective Lauren Orvis, who was assigned to the case, wrote to a fellow officer to inquire about the outcome of search efforts for Misty. "Outcome? Nothing has been done yet," replied Stephanie Bennett. That same day, in response to many media inquiries, the police department issued its first press release confirming Misty was missing and asking for tips. Misty had been gone for 8 days. On the 16th of October, 5 days into Upham's search efforts, friends Robert Kennedy, Jeff Barehand took time away from their work and families to search for Misty. As board president of Red Eagle Soaring, Barehand had seen Misty lead Native youth in workshops. It was his turn to help her. After a few hours of fruitless searching, Barehand consulted a map and zeroed in on a wooded area that's both secluded and in the middle of the city, a place where bad things happen. "We were walking along the ridge," Kennedy said. "I crawled down. It was steep. I noticed something purple. When I picked it up, it was heavy, and I knew it was a purse. I dumped the contents, and as soon as I looked through the ground, I noticed a medicine bottle said Misty Upham on it, and I knew." While Kennedy climbed out to tell what he had found, Barehand continued down the hill. "I couldn't see much. Trees, vegetation, the river overflowing below. Scrambling to the west, I peered over. I could see what looked like a shoe, a silver gray shoe. That's when I kind of freaked out, but I wasn't sure. I wanted to confirm before I called people." Once he lowered himself over the cliff, using rope and tree trunk, he began hacking his way through the blackberries. "That's the point where I lost my strength because I felt I was going to find something and I got scared, so scared that your body doesn't function. Your legs lose strength to carry your own weight," Barehand said. "Everything feels heavy. I started walking, hacking, and it was the hardest thing ever. That little bit of ground I covered took everything out of me. I didn't want to look, but I turned, and I saw her." There lay the body of his friend, decomposed, riven by the fall, and scavenged by animals. Barehand stayed with Misty for hours, waiting for the police and fire department. Officers insisted he remain at the base of the cliff, which was deemed too dangerous to allow the medical examiner to examine the site. Up top, the police had strung tape to keep back the crowd. Robert Upham was yelling at them. "I wanted you guys here a week ago," Kennedy said. The policeman yelled, "Get away from the crime scene," at Robert. Barehand finally climbed up the slope. "After I went out beyond the police lines, the family had been there, and they were asking whether it was her. They were hoping she was found alive. They kept asking, and the police were not telling them stuff, but I knew it was her. I felt an obligation to tell them." The mom completely broke down, screaming and yelling. Everybody did. Barehand, Kennedy, and Upham said the police did not debrief them or thank them for their service to the community. "They made me feel like a criminal," Kennedy said. "This policeman wouldn't say anything to me, just said, 'Lift up your feet. We got to take pictures of the bottom of your feet.' Didn't explain nothing. If they had said, 'This is standard protocol,' I would have understood." They gave themselves what closure they could, gathered around the zipped-up bag that held Misty. "We were holding her body through the bag, feeling her arms, her head. Some prayed in their native tongue, some in English, burning sage and smoke, putting cedar on her body. We just stayed there with her as long as we could." What became clear through the Guardian's Freedom of Information request that for the City of Auburn's emails and police records referencing Misty Upham is that police officers spent more time responding to media and members of the public about Misty's case than they spent emailing each other about finding her. While the police department took to Facebook to post pictures of canine puppies and ask for tips about ongoing investigations, they did not use their social media network to distribute photos of Misty during her disappearance. "If Robert and I weren't there that day, she could still be out there," Barehand said. "So I'm incensed that this governing body, the Auburn Police Department, didn't do the very least for Misty, for her parents, and for her friends. If they'd brought the search dogs out, they would have found her in 30 minutes, Charles Upham said. Herman replied that calling out the search dogs is not practical since their canines search for bad guys, not missing persons. Police investigators did follow multiple leads, but they did not locate all the persons of interest in her case." An emailed summary of police encounters with Misty, Herman wrote of his department's decision not to categorize Misty as an endangered missing person, Law enforcement is reluctant to use the category too often. Its effectiveness might be lessened. Are you fucking kidding me? Though his department's records show that Misty was suicidal, in need of medication, brandishing a screwdriver, and wanting to jump from a window, Herman wrote that Misty did not meet the police department's criteria for a heightened state of alert because she could care for herself. Auburn police officers involuntarily committed Misty 4 times in 2 years prior to her death because she was suicidal and unable to care for herself. Despite police records showing Misty in uncontrolled episodes of hysteria, anxiety, depression, and garbled language, Herman has repeatedly told members of the media that Misty was not mentally ill. She could also get into her car and drive and go to LA and act as a perfectly functioning adult human being, he said. Okay. The Native Search Party that formed to find Misty is a microcosm of a larger effort to build Indigenous justice. The scale of this need is vast. During this time that Misty was gone, she was one of more than 1,000 missing Indigenous women in North America. And I'm going to stop this there because it gets into some stuff with a person that is not... Yeah. In the description, you will see resources where you can read about what's being done about these things. Okay, I got to take a break for a minute. I'm just going to leave you with a little bit of silence for a minute because I need to respond to somebody and get something to drink and kind of just cope with this a minute. Just hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, some things that were not... Could we please not discuss that in here? That's not what this is about. When Misty went missing, one of the sheriff's deputies was quoted as saying, "Oh, who cares? It's just another Indian." Now that my Diet Coke Zero has stopped foaming, maybe I can fill it up a little bit more. And somebody with the ME's office had confided to someone else in the family that while the report stated that her injuries were consistent with a fall, the ME's down on the down low said no, they weren't. That she should have had those sort of injuries all over her body, not just to her upper body. And it's very suspected that somebody had caught up to her and beat her. Possibly even raped her. Or beat her because they wanted to rape her and then she fell. And the thing is, what came out after her death was she went to an awards ceremony in Los Angeles. And that Harvey Weinstein and some of his buddies pushed her into a room and raped her. This happens all over the country. And as the story stated, 70 to 75% of Native people do not live on reservations. So this is on and off the reservation. And like the poem said, I don't know if you got to hear it because I couldn't get the audio to work apparently. 88% of the perpetrators of these acts are non-native, primarily white. Hold on just a moment. Someone wants to come in that doesn't know how to get in. Often police don't want to be bothered with the reports. They either won't take the reports, they don't want to investigate, they don't want to look for anything. It's hard to explain how frustrating it is when these things happen constantly. There was a story of one woman, I can't remember if it was in Minnesota or South Dakota, but she was found beaten, raped, murdered, folded in half, and shoved under a travel trailer. And the police said it was natural causes. Very frequently, somebody will turn up wrapped up in plastic wrap in a river, and they say it's natural causes. We had an episode here inland not too long ago where the woman, her car ended up in the river. And it was very suspicious, but they figure she drove into the river and that was it. But the thing is, she supposedly did it driving out to her reservation. And where the road goes, because I went out to the site. I took the trip and I went way the fuck away from, everything and out this road. And I got to the site and there's like a big turnout there. And then there's the boat launch. But the boat launch is at an angle coming backwards the other way up, down the road. So if she's going, say, north on that road, but the boat launch angles more south, how do you accidentally drive into the river there? That's an awfully sharp turn to take to drive into the river. And then apparently her car floated for a while and then, but nobody wants to even investigate it any further. Oh, she fell in the river. Oh, well, whatever. She did. Who cares? But anyway, yeah, to the person that wants to come in and write something, you have to be subbed for at least 15 minutes because Since I have a lot of trolls, I am trying to control the trolls. Although some of the trolls have been, subscribed for a long time. And we only have 2 people watching, and I figured as much, but, whatever. Okay. Give me a minute. I've got another story to read. This one appeared in People magazine, written by Casey Baker, September 26, 2018. Pregnant woman's killer cut out her baby with small blade and smuggled her body out in a dresser. No one recalls seeing Savannah LaFontaine Graywind leave her small apartment building in Fargo, North Dakota on August 19, 2017. The day she vanished without a trace, while she was 8 months pregnant. When her body was discovered 8 days later in the nearby Red River, 3 days after her 5-day-old daughter was found in the possession of her upstairs neighbor, Brooke Cruz, theories ran rampant. How was she killed? How did she give birth? And how did she leave, or was she taken, out of her apartment building? On Tuesday, jurors in the trial of 33-year-old William Hone, who is charged with conspiring to commit murder in the death of LaFontaine Graywind, heard what happened the day the 22-year-old disappeared, according to multiple news outlets. The version of events came directly from Brooke Cruz, 39, the woman who is serving a life sentence after admitting to her own murder conspiracy charge in December. Hone has pleaded guilty to 2 lesser charges in the case: kidnapping and providing false information to authorities in their investigation of LaFontaine Graywind's death, online court records show. Hone's attorney, Daniel Borgen, told jurors last week that his client only helped Cruz cover up the murder, but did not commit any homicidal violence himself. Taking the stand on Tuesday morning, Cruz reportedly described how she set out to steal LaFontaine Graywind's unborn baby to salvage her relationship with Hone, and how the 2 hid the young woman's body and her newborn from police. Cruz testified that in early 2017 she lied to Hone about being pregnant because she thought he wanted her to have a baby. Local TV station KVLY reports. Excuse me. She told the court that during an argument that August, Hone admitted he knew she wasn't pregnant, but because he had previously told others she was expecting, he demanded that she produce a baby, according to KVLY. This alleged demand, she claimed, led her to believe she had better have a baby no matter how it happened, the outlet reports. When Hone allegedly mentioned how that Graywind girl is really pregnant, Cruz testified that she thought that meant he wanted her to take LaFontaine Graywind's baby, KVLY reports. In court on Tuesday, Cruz, who changed her story during the course of the investigation and previously claimed that LaFontaine Graywind willingly gave up her child before vanishing, said that after she brought LaFontaine Graywind up to her apartment under the pretense of helping her with a sewing project, she pushed the younger woman, who then hit her head on the bathroom sink and was struck unconscious. However, on Monday, medical examiner Dr. Victor Froloff testified that LaFontaine Graywind showed no signs of a head injury. With LaFontaine Graywind lying on the floor, Cruz testified that she grabbed a small razor blade, such as a carpenter's knife or box cutter, from the kitchen. Okay, this is where it gets horrible, people. And sliced open LaFontaine Graywind's abdomen, taking her baby out of her womb as she drifted in and out of consciousness. When Hone came home and saw Cruz on the floor with LaFontaine Graywind, he allegedly asked if she was dead, to which she replied, "I don't know, please help me," she testified, according to the forum. After retrieving a rope from another room, Hone put it around LaFontaine Graywind's neck and said, "If she wasn't dead before, she is now." Dr. Froloff told the court on Monday that he wasn't able to determine whether LaFontaine Graywind died of blood loss or strangulation from the rope that was tied around her neck. "I can't undo what I've done, but I can do everything in my power to own up to what I did," Cruz said on the stand. Oh, Jesus. When LaFontaine Graywind failed to return home for more than an hour after she went upstairs, her parents went looking for her, asking Cruz where her daughter was, with Cruz telling them she had no idea. LaFontaine Graywin's mother, Norberta Graywin, previously told People. Police have said they knocked on Cruz's door at 5 p.m. on August 19th, searching the apartment that afternoon, and then again on August 20th. Cruz testified that the body was stuffed in the bathroom closet of her apartment during both of those searches. The baby was hidden under blankets next to Hone when police searched the apartment on August 19th, she testified, according to the outlet. Hold on, excuse me a moment. On August 20th, Hone hollowed out his dresser and put LaFontaine Graywin's body inside, Cruz testified. Wrapped in towels and plastic, she was hidden inside the dresser when police searched the apartment on August 20th, Cruz told the court. Cruz said that the early morning hours of the 21st, she and Hone carried the dresser down the stairs and loaded it into their Jeep Cherokee. Well, isn't that ironic? On Monday, Hone's former Cass County jailmate Brian Grob, hold on, let me take a drink here, testified that Hone told him he hid the body in a dresser, WDAY reports, nailed the front piece to the back of it, and moved it down the stairs himself. While Grob said Hone shared details of how he helped Cruz dispose of LaFontaine Graywin's body, he testified that Hone told him he did not help Cruz kill her. But when Grob opened up about the difficulty he had with an ex-girlfriend's abortion, he said Hone responded in an unsettling way, saying, "Well, I would have just cut the baby out of the bitch." Hazley Jo, LaFontaine Graywin's baby, now 1, miraculously survived her mother's amateur C-section. She lives with her father, Ashton Matheny, Savannah's longtime boyfriend. She is learning how to walk, shakes her head no, and has a lot of personality, Matheny told People last week. She's quiet a lot, but when she's comfortable around people, she talks a lot and will let out a happy scream when she's excited. Yeah, Adorkables, the suicide rate, well, we'll discuss that in a minute, but because of Savannah Graywin's murder, they now have something called the Savannah Graywin Law, and that also is in the description. And we're going to take a short break again. My sister texted me to let me know that in general the media will only report on missing and murdered Indigenous people when they can make them look bad. Kind of like they do with black people. Oh yeah, he saved puppies, but did you know that he was arrested for shoplifting once? That sort of thing. Of course, law enforcement, their first assumption, oh, they were out partying, they got drunk, whatever. Now, back to suicide rates among Native people. Native youth experience a suicide rate that is about 8 to 10 times the national average. And there's a lot of reason for that. There's a lot of stuff behind that. It's not just like poverty or anything like that. It's the way Native people are treated, the way you're seen, the stereotypes about people. I mean, we see teams all the time that if they're playing a Native team, they'll say, oh, we're going to scalp you, we're going to send you on the Trail of Tears, and completely oblivious to how not only racist it is, but how traumatizing it is. And when day after day after day you're treated as some dirty, filthy animal based on, what somebody's seen in a Hollywood movie, you live in a place where your chances aren't that great for getting a job, for getting an education. Yeah, people are going to turn to drugs, alcohol, etc. But that's anyone. That's not just Native people. But Native people get degraded the most for it. The former Shannon County, now Oglala Sioux County in South Dakota, which is where the Pine Ridge Reservation is the poorest county in the United States. I think the average income is like $3,800 a year. That's $3,800 per year, not per month. And no, you do not automatically get paid by the government for being Indian. What people are actually talking about when they say that stupid shit is what they call a per capita. And if you don't belong to a per capita tribe, and most tribes are not per capita tribes, then you don't get a per cap. We don't get free college. If you work hard, you might be able to get a scholarship, and your tribe might have a scholarship, but you still have to qualify for it. Otherwise, hey, you either find a way to pay for it or you get those nasty, nasty school loans. One of the reasons why this happens so much to Native women, well, Native people in general, we're not seen as human. We're seen as these dusty relics of the Old West. I mean, how many times on Twitter have I had somebody coming at me saying, well, you seem to be speaking English pretty good for an Injun. That's because our languages were taken from us. If you've seen the stories about the residential schools or boarding schools and how many children's bodies are being found buried on the grounds, their language was beaten out of them. Their culture was stolen from them to be replaced by the white man's culture. Clothing was replaced. Hair was cut. Children were starved, they were experimented on, and they were physically and sexually abused. They would rent the children out as indentured servants for pennies, and all that money went back to the school. Children were frequently taken to schools hundreds of miles from their tribe, and that was on purpose, so that it would not be easy for them to get back or their people to come and get them. If the parents wanted to see their children, they had to make the way over there. And if it required a train trip, they had to pay for it. If you did actually manage to come and get your child for, say, the Christmas holiday, if they were not back exactly on time, they were not allowed to go home the next year. And this was year round. And they still got, at best, an 8th grade education at the very best. Children died from illness. They died from homesickness. Some ran away and died of exposure. I've got a photograph, but I'm not going to show it just because it's traumatizing, of 3 little boys laying side by side that had run away from a residential school and froze to death in the snow. So that's why we speak English a lot better than our native tribal languages. This is why we have immersion schools to bring back our languages. This is why we have ceremony, because that was taken from us. In 1890 or earlier, I'm not sure exactly when, a Paiute medicine man by the name of Wovoka had had a vision. And that vision was a dance that would bring back the buffalo, bring back their ancestors, and send the white man back where they came from. And it was known as the ghost dance. And the ghost dance religion spread among the tribes. He was shown in this vision how to do this dance, and he spread it among his people, who spread it to people outside their area, and it spread, and it spread. And white men saw these people doing this dance that made them, they danced until they were in a state of delirium. And the white men got scared that it was an Indian uprising. So they tracked down one band of Indians under the leadership of Chief Spotted Elk, also known as Bigfoot, who had tried to get across the border into Canada, and when they couldn't make it, they'd gone back and they were going to go join Chief Red Cloud's people at Pine Ridge. On December 29th, 1891, they were surrounded by the 7th Cavalry. There was several hundred people. Chief Spotted Elk was already dying of pneumonia. He waved a white flag of truce. The 7th Cavalry was Custer's regiment. General George Armstrong Custer, who was already killed by then by the native people because he was an arrogant prick and didn't think that, he could be snuck up on. But they wanted revenge. His regiment wanted revenge. So even though they had been drinking, they surrounded the native people at gunpoint. They disarmed all of them. And they're not exactly certain exactly how it started. Supposedly, a deaf man couldn't understand why they were trying to take his gun, and he fought them, and the gun went off. The soldiers started firing. They're in a circle, and they're firing. The people are running, and they're being shot in the back. Women, children, elders, men, everybody being shot. They even shot their own men because they were shooting in a circle. By the time it was all over, about 300 men, women, children, and elders were dead. And all the army did was dig a big trench and push the bodies in. And that is the Wounded Knee Memorial in South Dakota. They were pushed in as if it were just a garbage dump. And for New Year's Eve, the few that did get away could hear the soldiers cheering and drinking and celebrating New Year's Eve. After that, Native American spiritual practices were outlawed. Remember the First Amendment? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion? Yeah, that did not apply to Native people. You could go to prison if they caught you praying, if they caught you sundancing, if they caught you doing a potlatch, whatever it was. You could go to prison. It was illegal to practice their religion. Until 1978, the Native American Religion, or the American Indian Religion Act. And then even then, more laws had to be written after that because apparently that law wasn't strong enough, and so they had to keep pushing for the right to do a Sundance, for the right to pray, for the right to have a sweat lodge. And in prison right now, you've got a prison chaplain. If you're in prison, you can go to church. But if you're Native American, you can't have a sweat lodge. Several prisons have had to fight for the right to have a sweat lodge or to have a medicine person do ceremony. Statistics as far as Native Americans go in the United States suck. Anytime there's any kind of poll or anything that has to do with any kind of racial lines, even though technically it's not race, it's a political designation at this point because we are sovereign nations. Hold on just a minute. I gotta gather myself here. Adorkables, there's all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, there's stuff in the description. Uh, there's so much out there that I don't know that I could give you all the links to these things. Jake, sorry, but it's not a joking matter. I'm not here for any kind of jokes. I'm not here for any levity. This is serious shit. Even pagans in prison have more rights than Indigenous people do. I have a friend right now whose son had this girlfriend that he was absolutely crazy about. And she cheated on him and fucked him up. He got really drunk, went out driving like a fucking idiot, and he managed to kill 4 people. He got 10 years in prison. First offense and all that sort of shit, you know. Meanwhile, the guy that killed a friend of mine who happens to be Native, that guy was on DUI number 5 and only got 3 years. But anyway, this friend of mine, her son, you know, he accepted responsibility, took personal responsibility for it. You know, I screwed up. Yeah, I got to pay for this mistake. Well, right now, his mother is dying of cancer. She's been fighting this cancer for several years. She's been fighting this cancer practically since he went into prison. She had finally just managed to get herself her own little house that was hers and hers alone. And it started with a lump in her neck. And the doctors didn't think it was anything. They didn't think it was anything. They didn't think it was anything. Finally, another doctor actually took a look at it. Turned out it was cancer, and it was breast cancer, but it already metastasized to her lymph nodes because the doctors had ignored it for so long. And so she had surgeries, she had radiation, she had chemo. They would get it under control, and then it would come back. And now it's in her liver, it's in her bones. And just recently, they basically told her, you've maybe got a month. And it's going to cost her everything in this last month of her life. So when her son does get out, he comes out to nothing. He's on his own. And despite battling cancer all this time, she has tried to help him battle for Native American rights within the prison system. The right to have the books, the right to have a medicine person, the right to Native treatments, the right to Native spiritual practices. She has also been fighting for the rights of anyone in prison, because apparently if someone in prison makes a phone call home, they charge them something like $15 a minute. The prison complex is all for profit. And she was fighting that. But her fight is coming to an end. Yeah, Adorkables, there's a lot of bad organizations. All I can tell you is look into them. If you're on Twitter, put in hashtag Native Twitter and then ask your question and put a link to the charity. And maybe somebody will answer you about it if it's a good one or if it's a bad one. But the thing is, even ones run by Native Americans can be bad. We've got plenty of people who take advantage of our own people. Also in 1997, an elder from the Puyallup tribe up here, Ramona Bennett, wrote what became NICWA, the Native Indian Child Welfare Act. Because he thought that he would make a joke, Blakes, and this is not a joking matter. Fuck it, I'm smoking. People don't like it too damn bad. NICWA is the Native Indian Children Welfare Act, which is an extension of trying to protect children from the boarding schools, because the welfare system will take Native American children away from their families for the same reason they put them in the boarding schools. They think that white people are better off raising their children. Jake, don't make me have to block you. That's not what this shit is about, and I don't appreciate it. Anyway, with the welfare system, there's still a disparity in that they hardly need a reason to take Native children. And the Lakota tribe sued the state of South Dakota because the state of South Dakota gets $97,000 for every Indigenous child they remove from their parents' custody. $7,000 of that immediately goes to the foster family that takes them. They can't use that money to help a family in need, but they can use that money to take their children. And it can be something like, oh, well, we heard them talking about having a beer. Anyone else can have a beer, but if you're Native American, just talk about having a beer, your kids are gone. Oh, the kids are playing outside and they're dirty. Well, because they're playing outside. Oh, your children are dirty, you're not taking care of them. Your children are gone. And then trying to get them back. And the problem is, now that we have this NEQA law, which of course we've had to have amendments to that law too, the law says, and it's a federal law, that if Native children need to be removed from their home, the first choice for a foster home is family. If there's no family available to take them or want to take them, then they're supposed to go to a Native American foster family within their tribe. If there isn't one available in their tribe, then they have to go to a Native American foster family of any tribe. And only failing that are they allowed to go to a non-Native foster family. And most places skip all of that and put them right in a white family. And we've had way too many battles where the white family decides that they can raise those Native children better, they can raise them cleaner with their religion, etc., etc. And so then they start basing that for adoption. Even when a child, the foster system is meant, you're basically a glorified babysitter. You're meant to take care of that children until the family issues can be solved and the children can go back. Too many people are using it as a fast track to adopt children. They will say this child is not available for adoption, and these people will still push it. They will spend thousands upon thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars to adopt a child that wants to go home to their family because I think I can do better. We are seen as less than. We are seen as animals. And the reason so much rape of Native American women and girls happens is because we are seen as things. We are not seen as people. We are seen as things to possess, to do with what they like. whenever, wherever, and we should not have to have a say in that. We're seen as exotic. We're seen as a pet to possess. A pet that you can fuck, apparently. And if the pet don't want to fuck or don't want to clean or whatever, you beat the fuck out of them. And because we're seen as other, as animals, as objects, as things, well, if the society at large thinks of us that way, what do you think the society at large that are in the law enforcement business think of us? Just like they said about Misty, oh, she's, who cares? It's just another Indian. A lot of the perpetrators think, oh, who's going to believe a drunk Indian? Adorkables, we had a case in California called Baby Lexi. Do you know what the family did to foster the child's native culture? They painted one wall in her room, Navajo blue. That was their cultural experience for this child. Thing is, the child wasn't even Navajo. That's another thing. People think that all the tribes are all the same. In my religion, or in my tribe, Osio, that's how you say hello. In Navajo, it's Yate. In Ojibwe Chippewa Cree, it's Buju. In Chinookan, it's Kikāwiynaw. We're all different. There are 575 federally acknowledged tribes and so many that are only state acknowledged. And every one, even though they may be similar within a linguistic group, everyone is different. And then even with language, you get into the different bands, they may speak differently. And then the different bands may have different areas, localities and such. Language becomes difficult. But our languages in this country, I believe was Lexi? I don't know if Lexi was, no, I think she was from one of the California tribes. But I think if you could look up baby Lexi foster child. Baby Veronica was Cherokee. Her father was enrolled Cherokee. And that was another one we had a problem with. But baby Lexi, the foster parents even went on Dr. Phil. And Dr. Phil only heard half the story and went off with his half the story without any other input. And that's one of the main reasons I fucking hate that motherfucker. That, and he gave us that Cash Me Outside, how about that, or whatever the fuck her name. Yeah, and she's like a millionaire now because of her appearance on there. Yeah. Like some people say soda and other people say pop and some actually say soda pop. Yeah, Lexi. Yeah, I'm not sure, but if you Google baby Lexi foster child, you'll probably come up with the tribe that she's from. Anyway, but yeah, because we're seen as basically animals, as a matter of fact, the United States government has us listed under flora and fauna. We were not considered citizens of this country, our own land, until 1924. We did not have the right to vote in all 50 states until 1962. At this point, I don't know what else to say. I just, today is a day of remembrance. We wear red, we hang up red dresses to symbolize the women that have gone missing and have never been seen again. In the description, if you're on Facebook, there's a Facebook page for murdered and missing Indigenous people. And the statistics that are out there are just fucked up. Because they are so incomplete. Somebody did some study about how many people are missing, how many Indigenous people are missing from each state, and I'm going, oh yeah, a big state like Montana with a lot of tribes in it, and you only got 24 missing Indigenous people? I don't think so. You can also look into the Highway of Tears. The highway in Canada, where a lot of Native women went missing. Most of them were involved in sex work because you got to pay the bills somehow. And they ended up raped, tortured, and fed to pigs by the pig farmer Willie Picton. That's an interesting story too. Native women and girls are kidnapped into sex slavery and sex trafficking at a higher rate than any other race. They're taken either up and down major highways to get them away from their area and moved around constantly, or they're taken out on big ships way the fuck out in the Great Lakes. Highway of Tears. Absolutely. And that is why we have, even in school, they're not even recognized. The history of Native Americans isn't recognized. And if it is taught at all, it's taught from, the white standpoint. In a white history book, it'll be the the Battle of Wounded Knee. Really? You had disarmed everyone. They had no defenses. How is that a battle? If you disarm your enemy, who isn't even your enemy, they're just trying to live their lives. They're trying to be safe. There is a movie about Highway of Tears, but it takes place in the western U.S., primarily Oregon. And that is a very difficult one to watch, too. And it does start with a Native American woman who got a ride home with this guy, who then pulled over and violently raped her, held a knife to her. And because, Native women aren't believed, oh, you were just a drunk Indian. She didn't say anything to the cops. We've learned not to, go to the cops. And she says that if she had gone to the cops then, maybe the rest of the women wouldn't be dead. Well, Blakes, we're more than citizens. We are sovereign citizens. Our tribes are considered sovereign nations within a nation. That's why we have different government. That's why we don't always... have you ever gone to a tribal casino and you're going, how come they can smoke in here? Well, that's because it's usually a state law, and we don't have to follow state law. We still have to follow federal law, but then again, that comes into play as well. On a federal Indian reservation, the tribe does not have any jurisdiction over non-native members. So we have a problem where serial rapists live on reservations because they can just go around raping whoever they want, and nobody can do a damn thing about it because they're not a tribal member. And then it also becomes a problem because if something happens on the reservation or off the reservation, then you've got this crossing of jurisdictions legally, and of course the tribe doesn't like the feds on their property anyway, but sometimes you have to, you know, accept that, but are the feds willing to come onto the reservation? And a lot of people go, oh, well, they won't let the feds on their land, so how are they supposed to be doing anything? No, it's that usually the feds don't want to go because they don't want to be bothered with Indian problems. And that is exactly the root of all of this. From the landing at Plymouth Rock, from Christopher Columbus, my religion is the only one, and you are wrong. That means I am better than you. I have dominion over you. You are nothing but an animal with your pagan beliefs. We tend to call it the spiritual part of our culture because it's not technically a religion. When I was part of RSN's community long ago, he had been working with this Loki Loki. So I'm like, okay, well, let's go see what this Loki Loki's about. He starts talking about Native American spirituality, and he starts talking about how it's an animalistic religion, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, 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 it's not. I got attacked en masse by these people who didn't want to listen to an actual Native person. They will not be corrected. They read what they read on Wikipedia, and God damn it, that's all there is to it. Because I got to tell you, I love being told my culture by somebody who read a book written by somebody who wasn't even Native American. Back when sociologists were trying to catalog our species, quite often by the time they decided, well, maybe we should learn about them, then we can write about them, and then blah, 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 study them like zoo animals. By that time, the people had caught on to what white people were doing. So, they would go to the elders for the old stories. Well, the elders knew what they were doing and would just tell them a bunch of bullshit. Now it's written in books and everybody believes it's true. Yeah, most tribes recognize multiple genders. But at this point in the game, we also have a problem with a lot of the tribes being colonized. They've got a colonizer mentality. The Navajo tribe just turned down recognizing same gender marriage or any safety for trans people. These are the people that they used to consider sacred. And two-spirit doesn't necessarily just mean that they're gay. There is a specific designation for two-spirit people, and they're basically considered medicine people. And we do not call medicine people shamans. That's a Siberian word. There are some tribes in Alaska who will call their medicine people shamans because they're close to Siberia. And did you know that people in Alaska are not called Native American? They're called Native Alaskans. I don't know why there's a differentiation in the designation, but it is. It just is what it is. It's felt in every day, every minute of your life, every breath we take. It's there. I had an elder who swore that Catholicism was our real, genuine, and true religion. And she was one of those that no matter what she said, that's what it was, and that's what goes, and blah, 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 blah. And she could be incredibly salty, and she could tell you some, very personal stories, shall we say. But if you try to tell the same kind of story back to her, well, you're just a slut. It's like, okay, it was okay when you had 3 guys going at one time. I got 1 guy, and now I'm a slut. Okay, whatever. And then when she found out I was actually pagan, Alaska was originally part of Russia. Alaska was purchased from the Russians. And the Bering Land Bridge theory was debunked over a decade ago. And yes, our DNA is found over in Siberia, but that only shows that people probably went to Siberia after the land bridge formed. They've found too many different patterns of migration for it to be just one thing, and that us coming over from Siberia was highly unlikely. No, that's not quite true. Whatever gender you tended to identify as more, that was your gender role. But they were considered sacred because they were considered 2 people in one body. But for the most part, one might have been more active than the other. They could take care of children and do all the things that women did, or they could go off to war, depending on how they primarily identified. And let's discuss war, shall we? Because that's another one. Oh yeah, all the Indians were just all kumbaya and all peaceful each other. Nuh-uh, they were slaughtering each other. Blah, 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 blah. We had wars, okay? Yeah. But we were not committing genocide. We were not wiping out entire tribes. And the wars had to do with a lot of different things. It could be over harvest lands, these berry bushes are the best. Well, we want to take your berry bushes, so we're going to fight you. Oh, well, your ponies are better than ours, so we want your ponies. Sometimes it was for wives. They would kidnap wives. Why would they kidnap wives? Because you don't want to get inbred. No, we share DNA patterns with some people in eastern Siberia. And again, that goes back to the land bridge theory that people probably went over there, not, the other way around. Yes. Usually only men went to war, able-bodied men, and you killed other able-bodied men. There are exceptions in history, of course, but for the most part, you fought with honor. Depending on the tribe, they had different manners of how you fight with honor. But you only killed other fighting warriors. You didn't go into villages and wipe people out. And technically, Blake's Siberia would be Eastern Asia, but if you look at the original people of any land, they're all fairly similar until you get to like Africa. No one's come up with an explanation of that yet, but if you look if you look at like Laplanders, Sami, even the original Siberian people, the original Russian people, there's all a very big similarity between a lot of the indigenous people of these lands. Matter of fact, they keep finding village sites around the United States and Canada that are older than previously thought. So then when they say, oh, well, Native Americans have been here since blah, 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 we look at them and go, oh, really? Dig deeper. Yeah, a lot of people want to deny that the smallpox thing happened, but there is some historical record of it in the form of letters. It's like, well, if we give them this stuff that we've taken off of people with smallpox, they're going to get it from the smallpox scabs, and we can take care of them that way. Native people got blamed for syphilis in Europe. Oh, well, Columbus and his men went over there and fucked a bunch of the natives, well, raped them actually, and brought it back to Europe, and that's how Europe got syphilis. Well, now they're finding out that no, syphilis ravaged Europe 200 years before Columbus. Yeah, a lot of the white children that were taken from their families and brought up by the native people, even when they had a chance, they preferred to stay with the indigenous people because, yes, they had more freedom. Yes, they were learning things. Yes, they didn't have to, go to church and learn these strict things that just didn't make sense. Well, Blakes, you want to know my theory? Have you never heard my theory on white people? I say that white people are aliens who were brought here to colonize the planet, which is why they colonize wherever they go. They just haven't been as successful at it as they were supposed to have been. They were supposed to wipe out all the indigenous people and take over the planet. Because the white mutation only came about 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Before that, you didn't see these really pale people unless there was some sort of leucism or albinism. Oh yeah, their lives were a lot tougher if they went back to their families. Beaten down and possibly just beaten and work all day and have babies, but don't be having any babies with somebody else. I mean, we didn't have this colonizer version of being a virgin until you're married kind of thing, and only, sex isn't for fun, it's for procreation, and we didn't have that. You wanted to go off in the bushes with somebody, you went off in the bushes with somebody. And there's a story about Sky Woman and Thunder Boy in the movie Dreamkeeper. And you can find it. Sometimes you only find it in 2 parts on YouTube. And I would like to try and get permission to play that one eventually, but I'm not sure how. I think my brother can probably help me with that. Yeah, they definitely, because things weren't as strict. They weren't as controlled. If you wanted to go for a stroll, you went for a stroll. No, I don't think so, because you still have native people there who are dark skinned. The United States government, they talk about democracy. Oh, it was based on Greek democracy. Actually, I think it's the Constitution. If my sister were here, she could remind me, because I always get it mixed up. I think it's the Constitution was actually based on the Six Nations, the Iroquois Confederacy peace treaty. It was based on the way the Six Nations ran their government. But they took the concept and basically shot the hell out of it, of course. There will be no women in charge of anything. There will be none of this and there will be none of that. They just took out the stuff where the men were in charge and, ran with it that way. Because most tribes, they have we're matriarchal societies. Women basically run the show. You're not going out hunting unless I tell you are. Well, the men are going hunting. You need to go hunting. You need to provide for your family. Men were usually taken into the women's families instead of the other way around. If the men wanted to go to war, they would sit around and discuss it with the war chief, but then you got to go to the women's council, and the women's council will discuss it with you, and then they'll discuss it among themselves, and then they'll discuss it with you and say, nope, you're not doing it. Or, yeah, I think you need to do it. Everybody had a part, and it was fairly equal. Yes, they had gender roles. And of course, we keep running up against these white women that, think that they need to free us from the yokes of these gender roles. It's like, oh, fuck off. But yeah, repressing the biological urge is completely unnatural, and it's all about control. That's what the Abrahamic religions tend to be based on, is control. You control women, you control children, men are everything, blah, blah, blah. Ever since Eve, they've been trying to control everything. And yes, I'm smoking again, and these stupid little skinny cigarettes that I smoke tend to go out a lot, especially when I'm not paying attention to them. Kind of like men. Don't pay attention to them, they'll go out. It's an old joke. But instead of believing that we hold dominion over the earth and all the creatures of it, we understood our place in the web of life, We understood that we were no better than the animals and the plants, and that we can't do without any part of that web. There was respecting your kill. You had to do a ceremony before you went hunting. If you got something, you paid respect to that animal spirit. Thank you for feeding me. Oh, wait. Yeah, most tribes were matriarchal. But, of course, white people tried to force their form of governance on us. And now we've got this chairman thing, and you may have a hereditary chief and all that sort of thing, but everything is run by a tribal council now. And you have to go by Robert's Rules of Order and all that kind of crap. Ugh, the number of tribal council meetings I've had to sit through. Yeah, because, repress that curiosity. Don't answer the questions. Don't tell them anything about anything. My elderly auntie, who will be 94 this summer, she said she didn't even know that penises got hard until she was married. Because her mother never discussed that sort of thing with her. and the Torah. I mean, the three Abrahamic religions are Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And they all are basically the same thing, whether a bunch of psychos in the deep south want to believe it or not. My friend Ali, who has the store that he wants me to help him with, he's Muslim. He has no problem with me. I have no problem with him. We'll discuss stuff once in a while, but he'll say in my culture, and I say in my culture. And neither one of us is trying to force anything on each other. And one thing we have in common is neither of us eat pork. Him because of his religion, and me because I'm allergic. Anybody have any other questions? Yes, well, the science of that is that there are chambers in the penis that fill up with blood while constricting to hold the blood in there. And the more arousal there is, the more blood gets trapped in there. And the last thing you want is a broken penis. It may not be a bone, unless you're a raccoon, which does have a penis bone. I don't know if any other animals do, but I know, sadly, that raccoons have penis bones. Somebody had some for sale at a yard sale. I'm like, oh, okay, nope, thank you. Oh, I touched that. Where's this Purell? Oh my God. But I had a friend who, on their honeymoon night, they were really going at it, and he went to thrust, slipped out completely, went to slam back in there, and did not make the target, shall we say, bent his penis in half, and actually broke those chambers. His penis started to swell up and turn purple, and he got written up about in medical journals because it was such a severe break. And yes, it's extremely painful. And then there was the time that I was at an estate sale, and the parents had been rock hounds. So they had buckets of, chunks of amethyst and tiger eye and shit like that. I went to look in one bucket, and I'm like, oh, good. What is this doing in here? That's a bucket of turds. Somebody's been cleaning up the yard. Well, it turned out it was coprolite, which is exactly what it sounds like. Turds. It's fossilized dinosaur turds. Yeah, I have no idea. We didn't get into what position they were using or anything, but yeah. I think he slammed into the pubic bone and just bent that sucker. Oh, fucking meow. That just sounds so painful. Yeah, because those chambers are like really tough tissue, like almost like tendon or something. But they can be burst. I mean, just any guys listening are crossing their legs right now. Hi, Kami. You came in on a lovely conversation, didn't you, dear? But see, this is more the content that I want to do. I don't care about views. I don't care about subscribers. If I'm going to do YouTube at all, which I never really planned to do, this is the kind of stuff I want to do. Reverse cowboy. Okay. I had to actually picture that. What's a reverse cowboy? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, my hips make that kind of impossible. But where was I going with this? But yeah, I mean, I want to do more educational things. I've got a notebook because I started writing things down, the different subjects I wanted to cover, but today being May 5th, which is the day of remembrance for the murdered and missing Indigenous people, that was what this was going to be about today. Didn't know it would turn into a sex talk, but hey, whatever. We tend to be pretty open about that shit too, so at least traditionally. Of course, some time ago on Twitter you could see this auntie on there after maybe a glass or two of wine too much. Usually it's like one or two and I'm good, but if I go beyond that, auntie's on Twitter telling you, hey, you want to suck a dick? Suck a dick! Who cares? You want to give it a try, see if it's your thing? Go for it. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Blakes. I'm hoping it was, because I'm just really tired of all the drama bullshit. It's just the same bullshit back and forth, so the shit that's going to happen is going to happen when it happens. I just don't need to be dealing with it. I did a short stream earlier today because I was reviewing the candle fragrances that I bought from that really boring stream of me shopping. Well, I got a hell of a deal on that boring stream. There was a deal that was 10 for 10 1-ounce bottles for $10. And then my Capital One credit card found me another coupon code, and it put both of them together, and I got all 10 for like $2.50, which is the regular price of one oil. But then shipping was $10, so it was $12 and something, so whatever. But, some of them are really good, some of them sucked. Unfortunately, I accidentally ordered 2 of the tea and cucumber, and I don't know if I would label the candles tea and cucumber. Yeah, the drama isn't even fascinating, and it's not even the drama, it's the fact that someone is breaking laws. And has broken several, actually, which is why they're being investigated. And they can say they're not being investigated. They're lying as usual. And Kami is at the park with her son because she's always somewhere with her kids, even though someone else says that she needs to go take care of her kids. She never spends time with her kids. Well, thank you, Adorkables. There's a lot. I mean, there's more than what you can cover. I mean, there's the Pocahontas thing. There's Columbus. There's, again, murdered and missing Indigenous people. Hold on, let me see what my phone is trying to say. She still can't write anything in there. I don't know why. I'll talk to her later and we'll figure it out, and she can join in on other ones. It's my sister, but I just don't want her name on here because of the drama, because I don't want people going after her. We've already dealt with enough of that on Twitter. She and my brother had a radio show for quite some time, and violent racists would call in threatening them. They had the KKK threatening to hunt them down. They were going to rape my sister. They were going to burn their house down, etc., etc. And my sister tends to be, oh, you going to come and do that? You just go right ahead. You come on and try that, She's that type, so. But the thing is, on Twitter, she gets it all the time. She and I both get it all the time, but she's got more visibility than I do because they're in media, and I don't want to subject her to that. I'm not about to. She had one creep that posted a picture of her as Pocahontas being raped from behind and told her she needed to have a spiritual spanking. Another psycho in Canada started putting her pictures up there as wanted posters, saying that this woman's a babysitter, but she molests children. Don't let this woman babysit your children. Thing is, my sister doesn't babysit children. And she doesn't molest children. And she has a very prominent gay celebrity who calls her his fag hag and calls her Chi-Chi. Yes, absolutely. It was all for land and gold, much like Mount Rushmore. The Six Grandfathers is what it was called before a KKK member by the name of Gutzon Borglum decided he was going to carve some presidents' faces in it. And if you've ever been up to Mount Rushmore, the road basically goes in a spiral around this mountain. And you go around and around. Your arms get tired holding the steering wheel in place. Thank you, sis. She says I'm absolutely hysterical. So your arms are getting tired and you're getting nauseated because you're just going all in this one direction. When you're going up, you're going to the right constantly. Oh, hi, bro. He's over there laughing too. But you get up there and you're told, as an American, how majestic it is and everything. You get up to the place and you look at it and you go, that's it? Really? Because you're so far away from it that it looks really tiny and you're just like, I just went through all that to look at that. This shit carved out of sacred hills. Really? Plus, it was at the time of the Sturgis rally, so there were like bikers everywhere. Most of them were pretty cool. Some of them were like, hey, baby, come on and party with us. I'm like, I got places to be, thanks, yep. So I basically went up there, looked at it, went, okay, snapped a picture just to show, yep, I saw it. The Shrine of Democracy, fuck you. I should have had my middle finger in front of the camera. And then I left. And don't believe the signs off of I-90. No. Don't believe those signs. Because I wanted to go see what they call Devil's Tower now. But it was the same kind of thing as Mount Rushmore. You're on I-90 and it says, Mount Rushmore, 3 miles this way. So you follow that road for 3 miles. And it says, Mount Rushmore, 12 miles that way. And you go 12 miles that way. And then it says, Mount Rushmore, 23 miles that way. And you're like, what the fuck? And at that point, you're like, well, I've already gone this far. I might as well go the rest of the way. Fuck it. And then, of course, then you've got wall drug. For 9 billion miles, you will see billboards for wall drug. So by the time you get to that point in South Dakota, you gotta go to wall drug. You've been seeing this. Well, obviously it's a big deal. I gotta see this shit. And all it is like this long street full of with overcharged prices on like jewelry. And I had some guy there actually try to tell me that jackalopes were a real thing. I mean, I know that there is a growth that some rabbits can get that make them actually look like a jackalope, but they've got the fake jackalopes on the wall and everything. And this guy tried to tell me that jackalopes were an actual animal. And I looked at him like, do I look like that much of a tourist? And of course, they have the Black Hills Gold. Everywhere, you got the Black Hills Gold. You got the earrings, you got the bracelets, you got the necklaces, you got belt buckles. You probably got grills for your teeth by now. All this gold that was stolen out of the Black Hills because the people that owned the Black Hills, which varied, via wars over it, of course, for other reasons, it was stolen from these people because, ooh, gold in our hills. And I still, to this day, I'm not a big fan of black kills gold. Never have been. I've never been a big fan of gold in general. I've got some. I've got diamonds. I've got this big honkin' diamond ring that a friend gave me. But I'm just not big on, you know, that kind of shit. I'd rather have the actual raw stones. I brought a bunch of stones back from Idaho with me because I sit down at the river and I pick through rocks at the edges of the rivers and stuff like that. And I picked out these really dark rocks because they kind of had interesting shapes to them and stuff. Not really sure what they were. And recently I cleaned them up and I turned on the flashlight on my phone to see what it was. And I'm shining. Oh my God, they're red inside. Oh my God, these are pieces of garnet. Because garnet is all over the place over there. You remember Ruby Ridge, the whole FBI, shootout thing up there? The reason Ruby Ridge is called Ruby Ridge is because they thought they had found rubies over there. And it turns out it's actually garnet. Garnet is like sick all over the place. I used to go to a rock shop in Idaho. The dude would sell me just shit tons of rocks on the cheap. And I wanted to go to this garnet dig up north of from where my aunt lives. But the last time I was there, it was during the pandemic, and they were repairing the road because there had been a big storm and they were replacing the roads or something like that. But, I used to get that Rock and Gem magazine, and one day, where was it? I used to go to this auction in Seattle, the Salvation Army. Stuff that they couldn't sell in the store, they would auction off in bulk. You could get this huge, like 6x6x4 crate full of VHS movies for a couple bucks. And I would get the toiletries. They couldn't sell the toiletries in the store, so I would get these tubs of toiletries for like $5. I mean, big Rubbermaid totes, overflowing. And sometimes I'd get 2 or 3 of them. And I'd go through them, and I would find some really nice high-end stuff that had never been opened. Well, in one of the boxes one time was a book. And it's an old, like, government mineral survey. And it has maps. And it tells you what minerals and gems can be found in each area. It is the freaking coolest book. I've had like 3 people borrow it so they could just, make copies of the pages so that they could have their own copy, because no, you're not taking my copy. I'm going to stand beside you with a gun to your head while you're taking these copies, because no, you're not getting my copy. And I've tried to do a little bit of exploring over near Lapway in the Clearwater River. You're supposed to be able to find hyalite opal, which is a water clear opal, but when you move it around, you see the flashes of light. And so far I haven't found any. Of course, you're also looking in the water, so if it already looks like water, it's kind of hard to see unless the light hits it just right. And then I found some little pale greeny kind of stones, and it turns out it's Snake River, well, they call it Snake River jade. I think it's more of a jasper. My birthstone is opal. It's my favorite stone. I've got raw opal. I've got beads. I've got cabochons. I think I made somebody something with my Outlawed opal beads one time, and the rest I'm like, nope, these are mine. These are mine. These are mine. But black opal, there's some black opal down near Nevada. And then, of course, all over Australia, Mintabi, Lambie, Lightning Ridge, Coober Pedy. Because, people live underground in Australia, and when they need a new room added to their house, they just blow up the wall and find more opal, and then they can pay for all the work they need to do to actually build the room. But there's a type found in Africa now called Outlawed opal, but it's a really nice stone, but it's much more delicate because where it's found in Africa is even drier than Australia. So it's far more brittle, and more likely to absorb water from the atmosphere and crack and discolor. Oh, so you're a February baby then. I love amethyst too. That guy that had the rock shop, um, he had those cathedrals, the big geodes, the big tall ones, taller than me. Just gorgeous. I love amethyst. Well, I just love rocks. People, oh yeah, every time I take my kid somewhere, he comes back with rocks and shells and all kinds. Yeah, I'm still doing that. I've been known to go out with a backpack just because I need to be able to carry everything back with me. And once I get my back fixed, there was an elderly couple I used to help out a lot. They had some neighbors who were an elderly couple that did a lot of rock hounding. And when the rock hounding couple died, their kids didn't want anything to do with all those rocks, so they dumped them out in the woods. And so this couple that I had been helping out, he showed me where this basically a stone midden was. And so I need to go back and ask him, once my back is working again, if I can go in there, because I can take some 5-gallon buckets with me and just keep hauling the shit out. And it's a lot of Thunderbird eggs, but they have blue chalcedony in them. Nothing, particularly amazing, but there's a lot of black obsidian. I found some snowflake obsidian, a lot of agate, mahogany agate, I think. And what's the other thing? Oh, the petrified wood. And the petrified wood, those birch, the old birch cabinets that people used to have in their houses like back in the 50s and 60s. It looks like that. It just looks like it's varnished wood. Aquamarine, so that's December. Is that no, May is emerald. I bought a pair of emerald earrings, but I don't know what the fuck kind of metal they used for the settings, but I can't wear them. Chews my ears up. I have that nickel allergy, and if it's not gold or silver, don't even bother. I got some little amethyst studs, and they were supposed to be white gold. I don't know what they amalgamate gold with to make white gold, but obviously there's some nickel or something in it. I put them in my ears, and pretty soon I'm kind of like scratching at my ears, but I'm not really paying attention because I was busy doing something else. And scratch. Pretty soon I'm really rubbing and scratching at my ears. By the time I realized what was going on, March, okay. Diamond might be December, I'm not sure. Anyway, by the time I realized what was going on, I reached up to take the earrings out. I couldn't get them out because my ear had swollen around the earring. Maybe June is... Oh, okay. Turquoise. Okay. I think June is diamond. Garnet is January. July is ruby because I've bought rubies for my aunt. Because everybody in that family is born in July. I swear to you. And I think... Ooh, is it today or tomorrow? Hey, brother, happy birthday! If he's listening, happy birthday! I still got your Christmas presents and your birthday presents, so whenever they freaking fix your freaking house, I can send them to you, and maybe they won't sit in a freaking post office for a month before they decide to return them. Okay. Yep. Sounds like something's tapping on the wall. I have demons! Oh my god! Away, demon. I do not need your assistance at this time. But don't go too far, okay? Yeah, well, I got this candle here for you and stuff. Well, we'll talk. I'm doing a live stream right now. Yeah, you just go do what you need to do. Demons, man. Anyway, so we went from talking about murdered and missing Indigenous people to rocks. Oh, my brother says thank you, and oh, come on, phone. Talk about blowing up my phone. My phone was literally blowing up. He's laughing. He loves you. Love you too, brother. Make them get the house fixed, or I'm coming over there. And you don't want that. Well, they don't want that. Yeah, they don't want that. Between me and my sister, yeah, they don't want that. Of course, they should be more afraid of her than me, but, whatever. Yeah, it's a thing. We both bite, so. So anyway, do we have any more subjects? Are we going to talk about murdered and missing Indigenous people some more? Because it sucks. And they're finally starting to put together programs that alert people when, an Indigenous person goes missing. They're finally starting to take count of when we go missing. Thing is, if I went missing, since I'm white-coated, it would probably be on the news. But if I were like my darker cousins, because where we lived when I was a kid, one of my darker cousins, her mother told her to go to JCPenney and return this training bra that she had gotten that didn't fit. And as she was walking over the bridge into town, this teenager from the local high school invited her under the bridge to smoke some weed. And because she's darker than me, but she's not dark, and so she's not counted amongst, murdered and missing Indigenous women. But let's just say the result was so bad that the cops were vomiting. Apparently he put the moves on her. She was only 12, so of course, no way, dude. And so he strangled her with the bra and raped her with a branch so viciously. Yeah, it's a start, but it's something they should have been doing for a hell of a long time. I'm not even sure what to say right now. I kind of, I've had a couple of cousins, well, at least 3 that have gone missing. One was just 5 or 6 years old, and a guy that had just gotten out of prison for sexual crimes, kidnapped her, raped her, killed her, left her for dead. Leaves that look like you? Okay. Are there a lot of leaves that look like you, Kami? Is there a mom tree in Japan, so it's full of leaves that look like you? Kids are awesome. They come up with some of the darndest things. My little guy across the street, sometimes he tells me stories and I just go, what the hell? It's like, this kid's going to be a fiction writer. Holy shit. But, yeah, I mean, I started to say something earlier about when there are polls done that are along racial lines, almost never are Native American people mentioned. We're always under other or mixed, or we're just not even included at all. Was it last year that CNN said something else? So, of course, all of Native America, all of Indian country, runs wild with that something else narrative. Yeah, I went to bed Native American, and I woke up as something else. I mean, it became t-shirts, it became beadwork, it became videos. It was everything and everywhere. TikTok. It was freaking awesome. And that's just, it's the way we do things. We take something that's an adversity and we turn it around and make a joke about it. The late comedian Charlie Hill said that, white people never thought Native Americans could be funny. Well, we didn't think you were too funny either. So Charlie Hill is someone you should check out. Or if you want your comedy a little on the naughtier side, Don Burnstick. And it's just like it sounds. Burn Stick. Don Burnstick. Oh yeah, CNN's never going to live that shit down. It's like, we got black people, we got white people, we got Asian people, and something else. So, okay, we something else. Not sure how we should take that, but we took it as we did, and just kind of like when the tourists in Yellowstone get too close to the buffalo and that one woman lost her pants. Oh my God! There were earrings and everything else of buffalo with a little pair of jeans on its horns. But anyway, we've been going on for over 2 hours at this point. So there's some stuff in the description that you can look at, including the long form poem of To the Indigenous Women. The speaker is Ryan Redcorn. Remember when I was pointing out that, yeah, a pasty redhead can be a Native American? That's who is speaking in that poem, is Ryan Redcorn. The woman with that's you see there standing holding the baby, that is his wife Electa, or Electa. I think her name is Electa, and that's one of their 3 redheaded daughters. And the tall, good-looking guy with the gorgeous smile, that's Gyasi Ross. And he's an attorney up here in Seattle. I've met him a few times. And he's supposedly running this initiative. He's Blackfoot, Salish, and African American. And that's going to be another subject on another day, is Black Indigenous people. Because people look at black people and go, well, you're black, you're not Indian. Oh, it's called mixed race. Yeah, they can, and it's very common. We'll discuss the slave trade. We'll discuss escaped slaves that married into our tribes. We'll discuss the 5 so-called civilized tribes. We'll discuss all of that. And so we'll do that on another day. Hopefully maybe I can get some people to talk on the subject after all this drama bullshit goes bye-bye. But until then, everybody, my voice is getting a little hoarse. My throat's getting a little sore. But we will start doing actual content instead of the bullshit. Bye, sis. Bye, bro. Happy birthday again, bro. Talk to you later. Good night, everyone.